The chime of the ship's alarm jerked Oliver Franklin from his sleep. His eyes blinked open to see the red emergency lights flashing across the walls of his cabin. Through the small viewport, he could make out the orbital station of Proxima Centauri Roman 4 growing rapidly larger too rapidly. "All hands brace for emergency docking," Captain Harris's voice blared through the comms. "Docking thrusters malfunctioning. Impact in 30 seconds." Oliver scrambled out of his bunk, grabbing for the safety harness that hung on the wall. The ship shuddered as the auxiliary engines fired, attempting to slow their approach. He barely managed to strap himself to the wall mount when the entire vessel lurched violently. The impact threw him forward against the restraints with brutal force. Metal screamed as the ship's hull connected with the docking bay at nearly twice the recommended speed. Oliver felt a sharp, devastating pain explode through his right leg as something heavy broke free from the wall and crushed it against the floor. His vision swam with black spots as he fought to remain conscious. "Medical emergency in crew quarters, Section C." He managed to gasp into his calm before the darkness took him. When Oliver woke, he was no longer on the human transport vessel. The ceiling above him was curved in a way that human architecture never was flowing, almost organic patterns that shifted subtly in colors ranging from pale blue to deep purple. He tried to move, but found himself restrained on what seemed to be an examination table. "The human is conscious," came a melodic, multi-layered voice from somewhere to his left. Oliver turned his head to see three tall, slender figures gathered around what looked like a holographic display. The Vexarians, the native species of Proxima Centauri Roman 4, and the reason for the research mission in the first place. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent skin that shifted between blues and greens, they had 4 arms and large, multifaceted eyes that reminded Oliver of insect eyes, except they glowed with an inner intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. "Where am I?" Oliver asked, his voice hoarse. The tallest of the aliens approached. Its movements were fluid, almost hypnotic. "You are in the central medical facility of Vexar Prime," it said in perfect English. "I am Chief Medical Officer Zethan. Your vessel collided with our station, causing significant damage to both structures. We have taken in your wounded." Memory came flooding back: the alarm, the crash, the pain. Oliver suddenly became aware of a dull throbbing in his right leg. He tried to look down but couldn't raise his head enough to see. "My leg," he said. "What happened to my leg?" Zethan made a gesture that might have been their equivalent of a solemn nod. "It was severely damaged in the impact. The bone, what you humans call the femur, was shattered in multiple places. We have stabilized your condition, but I must inform you that the damage is permanent." "Permanent?" Oliver repeated, his heart racing. "What do you mean, permanent?" A second Vexarian stepped forward. She, at least Oliver thought it was a she, based on the slightly more melodic tone of her voice, held up what looked like a 3-dimensional scan of a human leg, with most of the femur highlighted in angry red. "I am Senior Healer Nylith," she said. "The bone integrity has been compromised beyond repair. While we have stopped the bleeding and prevented infection, the structural damage cannot be reversed. In our species, once bone matter is destroyed to this extent, it cannot regenerate." Oliver felt a cold dread wash over him. "But humans can regrow bone. With the right treatment, bones heal." The third Vexarian, smaller than the others and wearing what looked like a student's insignia, made a sound like gentle wind chimes. "The human speaks of biological impossibility. Structural bone matter, once pulverized, cannot reform its original pattern." "That's not true for humans," Oliver insisted, struggling against his restraints. "We have a process called ossification. Bones heal and regrow over time." Zethan placed one of his 4 hands on a control panel, and Oliver's restraints loosened slightly. "Fascinating claim, but unlikely. We have studied many species across 12 star systems. None possess the ability to regenerate structural bone tissue once it has been reduced to this state." He gestured to the scan, where Oliver could now see that a significant portion of his femur appeared to be in fragments. "Where are the other humans from my ship?" Oliver asked, trying to stay calm. "Those with minor injuries have been treated and are being housed in the diplomatic wing," Nyleth explained. 3 others suffered injuries requiring surgical intervention. They are recovering in adjoining units. I need to speak with Dr. Sarah Kendricks from our medical team, Oliver said firmly. She'll explain human bone regeneration to you. The Vexarians exchanged looks that Oliver couldn't interpret. After a moment, Zethan made a decision. I will arrange for this communication. However, I must caution you against false hope. We have provided the best care possible given the circumstances, but you must prepare yourself for permanent mobility impairment. Over the next 2 days, Oliver remained in the alien medical facility. The Vexarians were attentive caregivers, managing his pain with remarkable precision using some kind of neural blocking technique that targeted only the pain receptors without affecting his other senses. But they remained skeptical about his claims regarding human bone healing. On the 3rd day, Dr. Sarah Kendricks was finally allowed to visit. The human doctor looked exhausted but unharmed as she entered Oliver's room, accompanied by Zethan and Nyleth. Oliver, thank God you're awake, she said, rushing to his side. I've been trying to get access to you since the crash. They say my leg won't heal, Oliver told her without preamble. They don't believe humans can regenerate bone. Sarah glanced at the Vexarian healers. I've reviewed the scans they took. Your femur is in bad shape, multiple compound fractures with significant bone loss. On Earth, you'd be looking at several surgeries and probably some titanium reinforcement, but with proper treatment, the bone would eventually heal. Zethan stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with what might have been scientific interest. You claim your species can regenerate structural bone mass even after catastrophic damage. This contradicts fundamental biological principles we have observed across multiple species. Our biology works differently, Sarah explained, pulling up Oliver's scans on a tablet she'd brought with her. Human bones are constantly remodeling themselves. We have specialized cells called osteoclasts that remove damaged bone tissue and osteoblasts that lay down new bone. With the right support, stabilization, nutrition, and time, even severe fractures can heal. Nyleth made that wind chime sound again, which Oliver was beginning to interpret as skepticism. If this is true, it represents an extraordinary evolutionary adaptation. Why would your species develop such an ability? It's not unique to humans, Sarah said. Most Earth vertebrates share this ability to some degree. It's essential for survival on a high-gravity planet with our active lifestyle. Zethan studied the human doctor carefully. What treatment would you prescribe for this injury? First, surgical reduction of the fractures, getting the pieces back into alignment, Sarah explained. Then internal fixation with titanium rods and screws to hold everything in place while the bone heals. With proper nutrition supporting calcium deposition and controlled weight-bearing exercise during recovery, the bone will regenerate over time. Zethan seemed to search for the right word, unprecedented in our experience. We have nothing in our medical protocols that would support such a procedure. Then transfer him to our medical bay on the station, Sarah suggested. The crash damaged some of our equipment, but we have enough to perform the necessary surgery. Impossible, Nyleth interjected. Your medical facilities were severely compromised in the collision. Life support systems in that section will not be restored for at least 14 standard cycles. Oliver felt despair creeping in. So what happens to me? Zethan considered for a moment. We can attempt to follow your doctor's recommendations, adapting our techniques to your physiology. But I must be clear, we remain skeptical about the outcome. In our experience, attempting to force biological processes against their natural limitations often results in greater harm. It's our best option, Sarah insisted, and I'd like to assist in the procedure. After much discussion and several consultations with both the Vexarian Medical Council and the human expedition leaders, a compromise was reached. The Vexarians would perform the surgery under Sarah's guidance, using their advanced medical technology adapted to human physiological requirements. The operation took place the following day. Oliver remembered little of it, just the strange, sweet-smelling anesthetic the aliens used, and the melodic sounds of their surgical communications as he drifted into unconsciousness. When he woke, his entire right leg was encased in some kind of transparent, slightly flexible material that seemed to shift and adjust with his minute movements. Through it, he could see his leg, now properly aligned with what appeared to be metallic supports running along the bone. "The procedure is complete," Zethan informed him when he noticed Oliver was awake. "We have followed your doctor's specifications as closely as our technology allowed. The bone fragments have been aligned and secured with internal supports." "Did it go well?" Oliver asked groggily. "The technical aspects of the surgery proceeded without complication," Zethan replied, which wasn't quite the reassurance Oliver was hoping for. "However, we remain uncertain about the biological process you claim will follow. In our medical understanding, the damage to your structural bone tissue is too severe for natural recovery." Sarah entered the room, looking tired but satisfied. "The surgery went perfectly, Oliver. The Vexarians have incredible precision tools, even better than what we have on Earth. The bone fragments are exactly where they need to be for optimal healing." "So I'll walk again?" Oliver asked. Sarah nodded confidently. "Absolutely. It'll take time, but with proper care, your bone will regenerate." Nylith, who had entered behind Sarah, made a sound that Oliver now recognized as their equivalent of clearing one's throat. "We have prepared a nutritional regimen based on Dr. Kendrick's specifications, including the mineral calcium and something called vitamin D that apparently assists in its absorption. We remain scientifically interested in observing the outcome." Over the next few days, Oliver began to understand the profound difference in biological perspective between humans and Vexarians. For the aliens, bone was a one-time structural development once formed. It remained static throughout their lives unless damaged, in which case the damage was permanent. The concept of dynamic bone remodeling fascinated them to the point of disbelief. A week after the surgery, the younger Vexarian healer, whose name Oliver learned was Trill, began spending extra time in his room, asking countless questions about human physiology. "So your bones are constantly changing?" Trill asked during one such session. "Even without injury." "That's right," Oliver confirmed. "About 10% of an adult's skeleton is replaced every year through normal remodeling." Trill's multifaceted eyes seemed to gleam with excitement. "This explains why your species can adapt to different gravitational environments more readily than most. We Vexarians require extensive mechanical support when visiting high-gravity worlds." "I never thought about it that way," Oliver admitted. "We just take bone healing for granted." "Nothing in biology should be taken for granted," Trill responded with what seemed like passion. "Every adaptation represents millions of years of evolutionary pressure and success." By the second week, Oliver was allowed to begin gentle movement exercises within the confines of the strange cast-like device the Vexarians had created. Sarah worked closely with Nylith to develop a recovery protocol that satisfied both human medical standards and Vexarian safety concerns. "The internal scans show early callus formation," Sarah reported excitedly during one checkup, showing Oliver and the Vexarian healers a new image of his femur. "See these cloudy areas around the fracture sites? That's new bone beginning to form." Zethan leaned in close to the image, his forearms adjusting the display from different angles simultaneously. "Remarkable. The cellular activity at the fracture sites is indeed showing signs of new structural development. I would not have believed this possible without witnessing it." "Told you so," Oliver couldn't help saying with a slight smile. Nylith made what Oliver had come to recognize as their laughing sound. "Your species' confidence is as remarkable as your biology, Oliver Franklin, but I must acknowledge the evidence is compelling." As the days turned into weeks, Oliver's recovery progressed steadily. The pain gradually subsided as his body worked its natural healing process. The Vexarians modified their transparent cast twice to accommodate the changing needs of his healing leg, each time taking extensive scans that they studied with increasing fascination. By the fourth week, Oliver was allowed to attempt standing with support. The moment was something of an event. with not only his medical team present but several other Vexarian medical specialists who had heard about the regenerating human and wanted to witness his progress firsthand. With Sarah on one side and a supportive framework on the other, Oliver carefully shifted his weight to stand upright for the first time since the accident. Pain shot through his leg, but it was the clean pain of healing tissue being tested, not the sharp agony of broken bone. He managed to remain standing for nearly a minute before needing to sit down again, but the achievement was met with a chorus of the musical sounds that indicated Vexarian approval. "Extraordinary," commented one of the visiting specialists. "The structural integrity has improved by approximately 62% in less than one lunar cycle. And it will continue to improve," Sarah assured them. "Within 6 months, the bone will be almost as strong as it was before the injury." 6 months to regenerate structural support that our species could never replace, Zethan mused. The medical implications are profound. As Oliver's recovery continued, word of the human who could regrow bones spread throughout the Vexarian medical community and beyond. His room became something of a destination for alien medical students and researchers, all eager to document and understand this process that seemed miraculous to them. By the 6th week, Oliver could take several steps with minimal support, though he still used a crutch for longer distances. The Vexarians had modified their monitoring equipment to track the cellular activity in his healing femur in real time, creating beautiful, flowing holographic displays that showed the dynamic process of bone remodeling. "Your healing rate exceeds even our adjusted projections," Trill informed him during a morning assessment. "The cellular coordination between your osteoblasts and osteoclasts is remarkably efficient." "I've always been a fast healer," Oliver replied with a shrug. "My brother and I used to joke that I had Wolverine blood." Trill's head tilted in confusion. "Wolverine? Another Earth species with advanced healing abilities," Oliver laughed. "It's a character from old entertainment media fiction, but yes, supposedly with rapid healing powers." "Interesting that your culture created myths around abilities you actually possess to some degree," Trill noted. "Perhaps intuitive understanding precedes scientific confirmation." At the 8-week mark, repairs to the human section of the station were finally completed, allowing for the transfer of their medical equipment back to operational status. Sarah suggested taking a new set of X-rays using human technology to compare with the Vexarian scans. "I want to document this properly for both our medical records," she explained to Zethan. "This case represents an important moment in interspecies medical understanding." The chief Vexarian healer agreed readily. "We would value having documentation in both formats." "Our Council of Medical Sciences has requested a complete record for inclusion in our xenobiology archives." The day the X-rays were scheduled became something of an unofficial event. Nearly a dozen Vexarian medical professionals gathered in the human medical bay, now restored to functionality, to witness the procedure. Oliver felt a bit like a science experiment as he positioned himself on the examination table. "Just like old times," Sarah joked as she prepared the X-ray machine, "though I've never had quite such an attentive audience before." The room fell silent as Sarah took multiple images of Oliver's healing femur. The Vexarians watched with their multifaceted eyes gleaming in the dimmed light of the medical bay. When the images appeared on the screen, there was an audible reaction, a harmonic humming that Oliver had learned indicated collective surprise among the aliens. The X-rays showed what Oliver and Sarah had expected, but what astonished the Vexarians. His femur, once shattered into multiple fragments, had knit itself back together. The metal supports were still visible, holding everything in place, but the bone itself had grown around and between them, forming a solid, continuous structure where there had once been only fragments. "Impossible," whispered Nylith, moving closer to the display. "By all biological principles we understand, this should not be possible." "But it is," Sarah said simply. "This is normal human healing, perhaps even a bit slower than optimal due to the severity of the initial injury." Zethan studied the images with intense focus. The structural integrity appears to have been restored to approximately 87% of normal parameters, and you say this will continue until full functionality returns. Yes, Sarah confirmed. The remodeling process will continue for months, gradually replacing the temporary callous bone with stronger lamellar bone. Eventually, you won't even be able to tell it was broken, except for some slight thickening at the fracture sites. Trill, who had been quietly analyzing the images, suddenly spoke up. This has profound implications beyond medical treatment. Species with this regenerative capability would approach space exploration, colonization, and adaptation to new environments very differently than those without it. I suppose we do, Oliver acknowledged. We've never thought about it that way because it's just normal for us. Normal for you, Zethan said with what seemed like wonder, is revolutionary for interspecies medicine. In the days following the X-ray revelation, Oliver found himself at the center of a flurry of diplomatic and scientific activity. The Vexarian government formally requested permission from Earth authorities to establish a collaborative research initiative focused on comparative xenobiology, with particular emphasis on regenerative processes. 2 weeks later, Oliver was walking with only a slight limp and the aid of a cane. The Vexarians had arranged a formal meeting between their Medical Sciences Council and the Human Expedition leadership, with Oliver and his healing leg serving as the living proof of what they now called dynamic structural regeneration. The meeting took place in the Grand Council chamber of the Vexarian station, a beautiful room with ceilings that seemed to capture and amplify the light from Proxima Centauri into patterns that danced across the walls. Oliver sat at place of honor between Captain Harris and Dr. Kendricks, facing the 7 members of the Vexarian Council. We are gathered to acknowledge a significant advancement in interspecies medical understanding, began the head counselor, an elderly Vexarian with pale blue skin that had faded with age. The human ability to regenerate structural bone tissue represents a biological process previously considered impossible by our medical science. Captain Harris nodded respectfully. We appreciate your willingness to admit to a gap in understanding. Science progresses through exactly this kind of exchange of knowledge. Indeed, the counselor agreed. And to that end, we propose a formal exchange program Vexarian medical researchers to study at Earth facilities and human medical professionals to share their expertise here. That sounds like an excellent proposal, Captain Harris replied. I'm sure Earth's medical authorities will be eager to participate. Oliver, listening to the diplomatic exchanges, felt a strange mix of pride and humility. His broken leg, a painful accident, had somehow become the foundation for what might be a revolutionary exchange of medical knowledge between species. Nylith, who had been seated among the council observers, approached Oliver after the formal proceedings concluded. Oliver Franklin, we have prepared something for you. She handed him what appeared to be a small, glowing crystal embedded in a metallic frame. What is this? He asked, examining the beautiful object. A complete 3-dimensional recording of your healing process, she explained. Every cellular change, every moment of regeneration, captured in real time and stored in this crystal. It will become the cornerstone of a new branch of study in our medical academy. Oliver was touched by the gesture. Thank you. I never imagined my broken leg would lead to all this. The greatest discoveries often emerge from unexpected places, Nylith replied. Your injury has opened our eyes to biological possibilities we had dismissed as impossible. This humbling recognition may ultimately save countless lives across multiple species. As the weeks passed and Oliver's recovery continued, the collaborative research initiative between humans and Vexarians expanded rapidly. Trill, whose fascination with human regenerative capabilities had only grown, became one of the first Vexarian exchange students selected to study at Earth's premier medical research facilities. Before departing, Trill visited Oliver one last time in his quarters, where he was now able to move about freely with only occasional use of his cane. I wanted to thank you, the young Vexarian said, for your patience with my endless questions. Oliver smiled. It was my pleasure. Your curiosity reminded me not to take for granted what my body can do. We have already begun applying some principles of human bone regeneration to treat injuries in compatible species, Trill revealed excitedly. Early results suggest that with proper support frameworks and cellular stimulation, we can achieve partial regeneration in species previously thought incapable of such healing. That's amazing, Oliver said sincerely. Something good came from my accident after all. More than good, Trill assured him. Your broken femur may ultimately save millions of lives across dozens of worlds. 3 months after the crash that had nearly cost him his leg, Oliver stood without assistance at the viewing window of the repaired station, watching as the first official medical exchange vessel docked at Proxima Centauri Roman 4. His leg still ached occasionally, especially when he stood for too long, but the Vexarian scans and human X-rays both confirmed what he had known all along: his bone had regenerated, growing stronger with each passing day. Zethan joined him at the window, his tall form reflecting in the transparent material. The human transport restoration has arrived with the first group of medical researchers, he noted. A fitting name for this new beginning. Restoration, Oliver repeated thoughtfully. Yes, that is fitting. We have learned an important lesson from you, Oliver Franklin, the chief healer continued. Not to mistake the limitations of our understanding for the limitations of possibility itself. Oliver nodded, shifting his weight slightly to ease the faint discomfort in his healing leg. And I've learned that what seems ordinary to one species can be extraordinary to another. Together, they watched as the airlock opened and the first team of human doctors emerged, carrying with them the knowledge of a biological process that the Vexarians had once declared impossible. Behind them came containers of research equipment, medical supplies, and educational materials, the tools of a collaboration that would transform medicine across multiple star systems. I should go meet them, Zethan said after a moment. The formal welcome ceremony begins soon. I'll join you, Oliver replied, taking a step forward with confidence. His leg held strong, carrying him forward just as it had before the accident. The bone within, once shattered beyond what the aliens believed was recoverable, now supported his weight, a living testament to the remarkable resilience of life and the endless frontier of medical discovery. As they walked together toward the arrival bay, Oliver reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. A painful accident had transformed into a moment of profound cross-species understanding. His healing bones had built not just a bridge between broken bone fragments, but between two species who now saw each other with new appreciation and respect. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a message was already speeding toward Earth, carrying news of a medical breakthrough that began with a crash, a broken bone, and an X-ray that showed the impossible was possible after all.